The wind screamed across Montana's Gallatin Range, turning the world white as Alexander Mitchell paused on the snowy trail to capture the perfect photograph. This ridge had been David's favorite spot. 3 years since the accident, Alex still hiked here on the anniversary of his husband's death. Camera in hand, memory sharp as the mountain air. Through his viewfinder, the world made sense again, just for a moment. Then he saw it. The black Range Rover skidded sideways on the icy mountain road below, tires desperately searching for traction. Time slowed as the vehicle hit the guardrail, flipped once, twice, then vanished into a curtain of blinding snow. The impact echoed through the canyon like a gunshot. Alex froze, his breath caught sharp in his throat. Memory flashed behind his eyes, another mountain road, another vehicle, another day when rescue never came. His hands trembled. The camera slipped from his fingers into the powder at his feet. Every instinct screamed to turn away, to protect himself from witnessing another tragedy, from feeling that helplessness again. But something stronger surged through him. Not courage, not heroism, simple humanity. He couldn't let someone die alone in the cold. He ran. The snow pulled at his boots. The wind stung his face raw. But he pushed forward, one painful step after another. The wreckage appeared gradually through the swirling white twisted metal, shattered glass. A single windshield wiper still desperately scraping against nothing. Before heading down the treacherous slope, Alex touched the worn wedding band he still wore, now hanging from a leather cord around his neck. "I know, David," he whispered. "You wouldn't leave them either." This morning, Parker had hugged him extra tight, somehow sensing the weight of the anniversary. "Take pictures of the mountains for me, Dad," his son had said, those solemn 8-year-old eyes too knowing. Alex had promised to be home for their Friday pizza night tradition, a promise he intended to keep. The driver's door had warped shut in the impact. Alex pulled until his shoulders burned, until finally the metal groaned and gave way. Inside, slumped against the deployed airbag, was a man in an expensive suit, blood trickling from his temple. He was breathing, but barely. "I've got you," Alex whispered, though the man couldn't hear. "You're not alone." If kindness in the darkest moments matters to you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Heart Stories. Your support helps stories of authentic human connection reach more hearts. Remember, sometimes the most courageous act isn't saving someone else, it's allowing yourself to care again after loss has taught you to be afraid. Alex assessed the situation with practiced calm. The stranger was unconscious but breathing steadily, a luxury-grade watch glinting on his wrist as snowflakes melted against the warm skin. The blizzard intensified around them, visibility diminishing with each passing minute. The nearest hospital was in Bozeman, at least an hour away in perfect conditions. This was far from perfect. Westbridge Cabin stood half a mile upslope, a century-old logger's refuge now maintained by the Bureau of Land Management as an emergency shelter. Alex had shown it to Parker just last summer, his 8-year-old son thrilled by the rustic adventure of it all. With strength born of necessity, Alex lifted the stranger. The man was unexpectedly light in his arms, expensive wool suit already soaking through. "Hang on," Alex murmured, staggering into the strengthening storm. Every step became a negotiation with the wind, every breath visible in the frigid air. The storm intensified, disorienting in its ferocity. Local wisdom echoed in Alex's mind. More Montanans died from underestimating the weather than from any wild animal. His lungs burned as he forged through snow nearly knee-deep in places, the unconscious man growing heavier with each labored step. Twice he nearly lost his footing on hidden rocks. The mountain didn't care about good intentions. It took the unprepared without remorse. The cabin materialized like a mirage, weathered logs dark against the whiteness, its small windows blind with frost. Inside, time had stood still since 1910. A hand-hewn table, 2 wooden chairs, a pot-bellied stove with an iron flue, and a single platform bed with an ancient quilt. The air smelled of pine resin and decades of wood smoke. Alex laid the stranger gently on the bed before tackling the stove. His fingers, numb from cold and adrenaline, struggled with matches and kindling, but soon orange flame licked at the dry wood. The stranger remained motionless, except for the shallow rise and fall of his chest. The expensive suit was ruined, soaked through with melting snow. Medical training from Alex's wilderness first aid course took over. Hypothermia was the immediate threat. He carefully removed the wet clothing, noticing the contrast between his own calloused architect's hands and the stranger's smooth, manicured ones. The stranger's eyelids fluttered as Alex wrapped him in the cabin's only blanket. He startled awake, disoriented, eyes wild with panic before focusing on Alex's face. "You're safe," Alex said softly. "Your car went off the road. I brought you to a shelter." "Jason," the man whispered, voice ragged. "Jason Calloway. Alexander Mitchell." "Alex!" Jason tried to sit upright, wincing as pain registered, even disoriented. He attempted to project authority, a CEO's reflex. "My phone. No service in this canyon. Storm's too strong. We're stuck until it passes." Jason's eyes darted around the cabin, taking in the primitive conditions. Something flickered across his face, vulnerability breaking through the practiced composure. The walls of the tiny shelter seemed to push them closer together as the howling wind outside underscored their isolation from the world. "Thank you," Jason said finally, the words seemingly unfamiliar on his tongue, "for pulling me out." Between them, the small stove radiated inadequate heat against Montana's implacable winter. Outside, night approached with Arctic coldness, stars hidden behind the clouds, heavy with snow. Inside, two strangers waited, connected by circumstance and survival. As the temperature continued to drop, darkness gathered around the cabin as the storm intensified. The stove's warmth barely reached the corners of the room. Alex fed another log into the hungry flames. Watching Jason from the corner of his eye, the CEO had grown quieter, more contemplative, as though the wilderness had stripped away something essential to his identity. "What brings you to Montana?" Alex asked, breaking the silence. "Not exactly Silicon Valley territory." Jason adjusted the blanket around his shoulders. "Quantum Nexus is exploring satellite offices, lower overhead, tax incentives." He paused. "At least that's the official reason." And the unofficial reason? Something shifted in Jason's expression. "Sometimes you need to escape the echo chamber. Silicon Valley can become suffocating." The cabin creaked under the wind's assault. Alex added coffee grounds to the battered pot heating on the stove, a luxury kept in his emergency pack. "You're local," Jason asked, accepting the steaming mug with grateful hands. "Bozeman, I design sustainable homes, specializing in Montana timber construction." "With your son?" Alex raised an eyebrow. Jason gestured toward Alex's neck, where a handmade wooden pendant hung from a leather cord. The word "Dad" carved in a child's uneven hand. "Parker." Alex smiled softly. "He's 8. We live just outside town, Mom." "We," Jason's question hung delicately in the air. "Just us now." "My husband David died 3 years ago. Car accident on a mountain road, not far from here." Alex rarely spoke of it, especially to strangers, but something about the cabin's isolation made truth easier. Jason stared into the fire, firelight casting shadows across his face. "My entire identity is Quantum Nexus, the brilliant founder revolutionizing assistive technology. The board constantly reminds me that investors connect the man with the product." His voice tightened. "After my last relationship ended badly with threats to expose me, it seemed simpler to bury that part of myself. Hide behind Catherine, my VP of communications, who needed the stability of the arrangement as much as I did." Alex recognized the haunted look he'd seen it in the mirror those first months after David's death. Not grief exactly, boss, but the particular pain of living falsely, whether by choice or circumstance. "I'm sorry, Papa," Jason said, genuinely wishing, then after a long pause. "Must be challenging. 2 men raising a child in Montana. We faced our battles. There was a 6-month legal fight when we adopted him from Portland. David was the warrior, though faced down every challenge with this stubborn optimism. Alex's voice grew distant. The community surprised us. For every person who objected, 3 stepped forward in support. The temperature inside the cabin dropped steadily. Jason's shivering grew more pronounced despite the blanket and coffee. His face had gone pale again, lips taking on a bluish tinge. Your core temperature's still too low, Alex observed with concern. Jason looked up, vulnerability naked in his eyes. Can I slip under your blanket with you? The question carried no subtext, just the simple human need for warmth. Alex hesitated, not from suspicion, but from something deeper. He hadn't shared space like this with anyone since David. Physical closeness had become foreign territory. Body heat is the most effective way to prevent hypothermia, he said finally, practical words masking the emotional hurdle. They sat shoulder to shoulder, awkwardness gradually yielding to necessity as their shared warmth created a small sanctuary against the cold. The intimacy was clinical at first, then oddly comforting. 2 people holding darkness at bay, not with passion, but with presence. I haven't told anyone I'm gay in nearly a decade, Jason whispered suddenly, the confession disappearing into the cabin shadows. Not even my board members, especially not them. Outside, the Montana night deepened. Inside, truth by truth, the distance between strangers began to close. Dawn arrived with startling brilliance, sunlight transforming the snowscape into diamonds. Alex stood at the cabin's single window, watching morning paint the Gallatin Range in impossible colors. Behind him, Jason slept, finally warm, finally peaceful. The storm had broken sometime during the night, leaving behind a crystalline stillness. Montana winters took with one hand and gave with the other deadly cold, followed by beauty that caught the breath. Jason stirred, his CEO composure temporarily forgotten in the vulnerable moments between sleep and wakefulness. Alex handed him a tin cup of fresh coffee, their fingers brushing briefly in the exchange. Your world looks different from up here, Jason observed. Joining Alex at the window, the valley stretched below them, Hyalite Canyon carved deep into the wilderness. That's why I stayed after David died. Considered moving back to Portland, somewhere more progressive. But Parker needs this space to heal, mountains to climb, a community that knows his name. Your son was close to David. Alex nodded, throat tightening. Parker stopped speaking for almost 3 months after the accident. Nightmares every night. He'd wake up screaming, convinced I'd disappear too. Sunrise illuminated the distant Bridger Mountains, turning their snow-covered peaks rose gold against the pale blue sky. This view had saved Alex during those darkest days after David the unchanging mountains standing sentinel, while his world collapsed. He'd built their home on the outskirts of Bozeman, with southeast-facing windows specifically to capture this light. Architecture had always been his refuge, the translation of emotion into structure. Montana has the highest suicide rate among LGBTQ youth in the Northwest, Alex said quietly. Rural isolation compounds the struggle. Kids can go their entire adolescence without meeting another openly gay person. The statistics weighed on him constantly, the reason he'd committed to the community center despite the resistance. Jason absorbed this quietly, something shifting behind his eyes. My brother Adrian has autism. Severe. He's the reason I started Quantum Nexus. Our AI communication tools were originally designed to help him connect with the world. That's not in your company bio. The board prefers the standard tech genius narrative. Better for investor confidence than a CEO driven by personal connection. Bitterness edged into Jason's voice. Same reason they encouraged my sham marriage to Catherine. Appearances matter when you're raising venture capital. They spoke through the morning, words flowing easier with each passing hour. Alex described his current project, Bozeman's first LGBTQ+ youth center. Controversial but desperately needed. Montana had the nation's 3rd highest suicide rate among LGBTQ+ teens, with rural communities particularly affected. The building approval process has been a battle, Alex explained. Funding even more challenging. By mid-afternoon, the snow had compacted enough for safe travel. Alex fired the emergency flare from his pack, its red streak cutting through blue sky. Within an hour, the familiar rumble of snowmobiles approached the Gallatin County Volunteer Search and Rescue Team, arriving with their practiced efficiency. The rescuers were classic Montanans, weathered faces beneath wool caps. Few words but capable hands. They assessed Jason professionally, preparing him for transport to Bozeman Medical Center. "Your friend gonna be okay?" asked Mike Ellison, a third-generation rancher who'd been pulling strangers out of Montana's backcountry for 20 years. "Not my friend," Alex corrected automatically. "Just someone who needed help." Mike's knowing eyes flickered between them. "If you say so." As they loaded Jason onto the rescue sled, he reached for Alex's hand, squeezing it briefly. "Thank you" carried more weight than two simple words should bear. Alex watched the snowmobiles disappear down the trail, carrying Jason back to his world of board meetings and billion-dollar decisions. He shouldered his pack, preparing for his own journey home to Parker, feeling strangely lighter than he had in years. 3 days later, Alex sat with Parker at Wild Crumb Bakery, the heart of downtown Bozeman. Cinnamon rolls steamed on pottery plates between them as locals shuffled in from the cold, stomping snow from boots onto the weathered wooden floor. Through the frosted windows, Main Street displayed its particular Montana charm, Western outfitters next to farm-to-table restaurants, cowboy boots and Patagonia jackets coexisting in perfect harmony. "Can we go to the mountains again this weekend?" Parker asked, cinnamon sugar coating his fingers. Before Alex could answer, the bakery door opened, bringing a gust of cold air and an unexpected figure. Jason Calloway stood framed in the doorway, transformed from the polished CEO Alex had first encountered. His designer suit had been replaced with worn jeans and a leather jacket. His hair, free from product, fell naturally across his forehead. Alex felt something shift and keyed him, a door long closed, creaking open just enough to let light filter through. He'd told himself countless times that grief was the price of love, a fair exchange for the years he'd had with David. What he hadn't expected was the possibility that his heart might eventually have room for something new. Not replacing what was lost, but growing alongside it. "Dad, is that the man from the mountain?" Parker whispered, eyes wide with curiosity rather than fear. The simple question reminded Alex how children often saw truth more clearly than adults. To Parker, Jason wasn't a CEO or a stranger. He was simply the man from the mountain, a character in their continuing story. "Your father saved my life," Jason said simply to Parker, sliding into their booth. To Alex, "I postponed my flight back. First vacation in 8 years, according to my assistant." "The board approved that?" Alex asked, surprised. "I didn't ask permission." Something rebellious flashed in Jason's eyes. After 36 years of asking permission, it was surprisingly easy to stop. Parker studied Jason cautiously, the wariness of a child who understood loss too well. "Dad says you make computers that help people talk." Jason's face softened. "That's right. My brother sometimes finds words difficult." "I'm making a game," Parker offered unexpectedly, "about a boy who builds bridges between floating islands." "I'd like to see that," Jason replied, his interest genuine rather than indulgent. Later, walking through Bogart Park, Parker ran ahead to the playground. Alex and Jason followed, their breath clouding in the crisp air. "I've been thinking about your youth center," Jason said. "The Callaway Foundation typically funds education initiatives, but I believe we could expand our mission." Their hands swung close, occasionally brushing. Neither pulled away. "Not looking to buy yourself a mountain friend," Alex said, half joking. "No," Jason agreed. "Just looking to find the person I buried under spreadsheets and shareholder expectations." As the sun gilded Bozeman's distant mountains, casting long shadows across the snow, they watched Parker climbing, his small figure silhouetted against the vast Montana sky, resilient, hopeful, brave. "Have you ever found yourself when you weren't looking?" Jason asked softly. "Sometimes the most profound connections form in the most unexpected circumstances." "Has a moment of crisis ever revealed truth in your life?" Share your story in the comments and subscribe to Heart Stories, where we believe every heartbeat has meaning and every journey matters, especially the ones that begin in storm.